It's another amazing day in the world of cycling. Welcome. This is Karnak the Great or Miss Cleo. Either way, my prediction from yesterday on the Stage 5 winner was spot on, and I'll go over details as to why. What else we got on the show today? Stage 5 race results and details. We're still grappling with the Chris Froome news. We have more details out about that. Chris Froome wins the 2011 Vuelta. We'll talk about that as well. News from the world of cycling, things that make you go, winners and losers. Stay tuned. All right, everybody, this is Tyler Janke, Between Two Wheels podcast. I appreciate you joining in. We're going to get right to some Froome updates. In case you didn't know, I did talk to someone this morning, a cycling fan who was oblivious to the world of Froome and what had happened. I think I need to push the podcast on him to make sure he's aware of what's going on. This is how you get your news and info. This is some of the best analysis around. Just pointing that out there. Chris and Curt will disagree, I'm sure. However, Chris Froome yesterday, and more details are coming out today. So yesterday we're in the Dauphine, the stage 5 of the Dauphine. That's stage 4, the individual time trial. It's 26.1 kilometers. It's got a rise into it, a pitch, a climb about the 11 kilometer point, and then it drives down. The word is Froome was out reconning this. He went over the top of the climb. I believe that's where it was. Or either way, he was starting to go down a hill. Wout Poels was actually behind him. Dan Martin was behind him. They were both following along, doing their own recon. Chris Froome signals to Wout that he's going to clear his nose, do probably a Farmer John. And as he does so, a gust of wind comes up, blows him into a wall of a house, they said. So, some tight roads, houses are right on the side of the road there. And he goes... They indicated, Brailsford said that they looked at his GPS data and he was going, 54, 55 kilometers an hour, and it went from that to zero. So high impact into a wall, not a good way to go. Evidently there was an ambulance on the side of the road that they, parked sporadically along the route to have, safety precautions and emergency issues. They came over, gave immediate care to Froome. I guess he was in the ambulance for about 2 hours trying to take care of him on the side of the road. They ended up going to Rouen, the town where the time trial was held, and then they airlifted him to Etienne, and that's where he ended up having, I think, an 8-hour surgery. And they said he's still in intensive care. They're still not necessarily out of the woods. So when we talked yesterday, and I was saying, we'll see if he does the Vuelta. That's probably not going to happen. We're looking at probably 6 months for him just to get back on the bike. There's some internal stuff, some ribs, some other fractures. We'll talk about some of those, and maybe we'll just go right to one of the news articles on Velo News and some of the info that they had, kind of recapping to what was just said there. Team Ineos has confirmed Chris Froome suffered fractures to his right femur, right elbow in a crash during the recon, as we just talked. Boss Dave Brailsford said it was too early to know how that might affect the rest of his season or career. First of all, I just want to make a correction real quick. I had mentioned yesterday on the show about wrecks that had happened, and I had mentioned, I meant to say Contador, but I said Quintana. So Contador had a wreck in the Tour de France and broke his leg. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he crashed pretty bad. He went on to race in the Tour de France. I just wanted to make that correction because I had said Quintana. That was incorrect. None of you are pointing that out, so please do so. Please send in your comments. We like them all, good, bad, indifferent. Corrections are primarily what we like to get as well. What does note is that Froome will not be racing for the record-tying 5th jersey at the Tour de France. It's obvious. Speaking to journalists at the Dauphine on Wednesday, Brailsford said Froome's forced exit from the Tour is a hard blow for the entire organization. Okay, I'm going to stay away from kind of how the organization deals with this. That's kind of secondary. I'm more interested in what the impact is on his health and exactly what went down. So obviously this is very hard for Chris. He was at a good level, they said. Crashed Wednesday in the final passage over the 26-kilometer time trial course in the Dauphine. Froome fell heavily and was transported to a regional hospital. In a statement issued by the team, the team doctor was there as well. Brailsford described the crash saying that Froome was riding about 60 kilometers an hour on a descent during a recon in the time trial. At the start of the descent, Chris wanted to blow his nose, and at that moment, a sharp gust of wind pushed him against a low wall against the side of the road, Brailsford said. Chris remained conscious after this crash. The doctors did report that there was no mental issues, no cranium problems. It was all, physical to legs, arms, elbow, ribs, internal, but nothing as far as no concussion, I guess. So either the helmet he had worked well, or he just kept that out of danger. Chris remained conscious after the crash. Luckily, there happened to be an ambulance right there. Sometimes we wonder what they're doing on the side of the roads, but we were lucky to have them so fast. Suffered multiple injuries, fracturing his femur, an elbow. It also stated he had fractured ribs. He was initially treated at Dauphine Hospital, as I had stated, and was expected to be airlifted Saint-Étienne University Hospital for further with his injuries. He's obviously out for the summer. Probably you may see, Chris Froome is the fighter. You may see him at the end of the season, World Championships or something. If he's, maybe just to get up and ride and do some racing. It'll be interesting to see who takes the place at the Tour now, and we'll have that discussion as it comes up later, whether it's going to be Bernal, Thomas, Wout Poels, someone else. But not really concerned about that part now. When asked if the injury could put Froome's career in danger, Brailsford only replied, "It's too early to say. It's obvious he will not be in Brussels," he said, talking about the Tour. "It takes a long time to heal, and everything can collapse quickly in one fall like this." So there was a mention of yesterday, look, Dan Martin said he was behind him. He's still kind of going through, traumatized by what he saw. Evidently, he pulled off to the side of the road. Wout Poels said he saw it happen, and he just kept going. Good teammate. I'm worried about his. He might have been traumatized too. I guess there's not much you can do. But in a situation like that, you might pull over. Now, Curt would bring up an incident that I had where I kept going with someone. Maybe we'll post a video of that. There's a video of me on someone's wheel and a friend, probably a teammate at the time, crashing, showing it, looking back. We kept going. Well, there were people on the side of the road helping him in that case. But either way, it's just an interesting has-been. One other thing I had mentioned yesterday was Philippe Gilbert. I said he was a lesser known. He's just a less likely for GC. So I just wanted to clarify that, because obviously Gilbert, we had a discussion this year when he won Paris-Roubaix. Is he one of the best riders ever? So he's not a lesser known. He's just a lesser known for a GC on this type of race. And he's holding in the top 20, which is what you would probably expect from him, which is actually going fairly well for him. So anyway, Chris Froome, we hope you recover. We'll talk a little bit later. I said some good news for him on the day. He may have won the 2011 Vuelta. We'll discuss that coming up. Okay, stage 5, the Dauphine. Look, as I said, this race, well, I haven't said it yet. Bouillon-sur-Lignon to Voiron, it's 201 kilometers. Yesterday, I made the prediction that this was going to be, if it stayed together, it would be Wout Van Aert that would be the winner. I thought so because I thought there were a few climbs that maybe Bennett wouldn't quite be in position. Having watched the finish, and we'll go over that here once I talk a little bit about some of the stuff here. It looks like Wout just, is he making progress in, and I guess it's a spoiler, Wout wins today. Is he making progress, leaps and bounds? He decided to do some time trialing. Now he's pretty good at that. Anyway, the start, it basically just heads due east today. It's heading right for the mountains. If you saw it on TV, it's pretty much open fields, not a lot of climbing in the last 50K or so. Some twisty, turny stuff, but they're heading right to Grenoble, and you can see the big mountain ranges, snow-capped and everything. So obviously we know it's coming up. Some climbs. The start today. Formerly Beaune is a commune in the Loire department in central France, population 3,350. I looked up some stats just because why not? And in 1962, they had 3,410 residents. It peaked in 75 at 3,766. So it likes that 3,000 range population. Doesn't look like it's grown. Maybe it'd be a fun place to visit. I don't know. They obviously probably just quadrupled the size just by coming through with the Dauphine one day. The finish is in Voiron. It's known for a few things. It's got some manufacturing there. The company Ski Rossignol was founded in 1907 by Abel Rossignol. That's where it is. Their entire families of Voiron, along with Italian immigrants who arrived en masse at the beginning of the century, worked in these factories. On the eve of the First World War, the silk weaving business used nearly 3,000, we don't care about any more of that stuff. Rossignol, good skis. I used them when I was younger. So that's evidently where they're from. The route, like I said, due east. And how about the profile? The profile we talked about a little bit from yesterday. We'll just categorize it again here. 1, 2, 3, 4 4 climbs with a intermediate sprint in between at about 60K to go. Then it rose up a little bit, dropped down, and had some twisty stuff as it started to get into town for the finish. GC will recap that going into stage 4. Adam Yates in the lead after the time trial yesterday. Dylan Toynes second place at 4 second. TJ Van Garderen poised to blow up, sitting in third at 6 seconds back. Jacob Fuglsang 7 seconds. Kreuzwick at 24, Thibaut Pinot at 25, Bachmann at 26, 30 is Lutsenko along with Wout Van Aert, Nairo Quintana at 40, Poles, Richie Porte, Dan Martin, Roman Bardet down in 127. So Gilbert, 20th place, lesser known for the GC riders. Okay, so how did today's play out? There was a break of 3 off the front. Demarche was in there. He kept, for CCC, he kept pushing it. There was a Vital Concepts guy, I want to say Cofidis rider. They didn't hang out. I mean, the group, look, it was going to come to a sprint, and the teams were making sure that happened. They timed it right. About a K to go. Edvald Bosenhagen does a lone attempt. He with a Decona quick step rider, and as they start coming into the finish, there's some left, right kind of twists and bends, and they're getting caught just as the sprinters are starting their ramp up. You had Bora Hansgrohe, you had a teammate, you had Sam Bennett on his wheel, then you had Julian Alaphilippe, and then you had Wout, and I think maybe Sonny Cabrelli. There was a Vital Concepts guy in there, and it looked pretty good for Sam Bennett, because they come around the last, it's like a left-hand corner, or it was a right-hand corner, and then it kind of bent to the left a little bit. And as they come around that right-hand corner, his teammate peels off, and Sam just doesn't, and on the right-hand side, Wout takes a dig, Alaphilippe takes a dig, there's a Vital Concepts guy that's going up there, Lorenzo Manzin, and Sam Bennett just kind of lets this happen, and then it's the mix is not good enough as far as the way the road is, and he gets put in a bad position. Wout comes through clearly and being able to post up, bike or 2 length lead. Sam Bennett finally gets his kick going. He outkicks Alaphilippe to the line. Looks like he may have been the fastest one, but he blew it. He blew it with the sprint, and his team actually did a good job of putting him in position. And I just think he needed to take control from the front at that point, which we saw him do the other day, and he can do it just fine. So the results here: Wout Van Aert gets first place, Sam Bennett in second, Julian Alaphilippe in third, Lorenzo Manzin fourth, Clement Venturi, Bosenhagen in sixth, Zdenek Stybar, Sonny Cabrelli, Gilbert, Wout Poles, Yates up there in 12th. So you had some pretty good results for the sprinters today, and I'm gonna just kind of take a look here at, okay, so what does their GC look like today? So after the GC hasn't changed, you still have Adam Yates, Dylan Toynes, Van Garderen, just as I had mentioned. And what I'm going to take a look at here is to see if we have the sprinters results and who is leading the sprint competition as of today. Wout Van Aert is leading the sprint competition. Bosenhagen in second, 53 points back. Sam Bennett in third with 47. Lutsenko 38. So Wout is, about 30 points ahead of Bosenhagen, and I haven't looked to see how he's been doing on the mid-intermediate sprints, but obviously being able to take the win yesterday. I'm not sure if any sprint points were up for grabs on the time trial. Obviously today, and he had been leading going into it regardless. So Wout, I mean, he's the man of the Dauphine. So look, let's say Adam Yates wins this race. We don't see anything more action from Dylan Toynes, from Wout Van Aert. Maybe he gets the green jersey. Maybe he misses out on the white jersey. Maybe he's able to hang on there. This race is really dictated by 2 people. I don't care who wins it, unless it's Wout. This race is all about Wout Van Aert, how he's come to the fore. He's won a time trial. He's won a sprint. I guess we'll be able to see if he can climb. He can definitely cyclocross. So, and then it's about Chris Froome. Other than that, whoever wins it overall is going to be happy about that, but it's really not, we're going to see some transformation. The conversation will change, but when we take a look back on it from like that 30,000 foot level, it's going to be about Wout and Chris Froome. So who are the winners on the day and who are the losers? This is a pretty straightforward day. You really only needed to tune in for the last 2K to really see the action, and then maybe watch the 1K a few more times. Not telling you how I watched it, but that's all you had to do. The winner on the day is obviously Wout Van Aert. Some other sprinters, I may say it was someone else that had an impressive time, but I predicted him yesterday, so I'm calling myself out there, so I'm a winner as well. And then a loser, I'm actually picking Sam Bennett because I think still has the best sprint. He's the better sprinter, and he got the good lead out. He got exactly where he should have been, but he did not play it right. And I don't know if he just didn't trust himself on that case. But Wout ended up playing it perfect and did exactly what he should have done. And he's the one that looks like almost like a Caleb Ewing or a Cavendish, working his way in there, fighting for his own wheels. And look, this isn't the full-on Tour de France. You don't have the best sprinters here. He's basically going against Sam Bennett, and Alaphilippe can get up there. And if Alaphilippe's up there in the mix, no offense, he's very quick, but he's not. If you're having a full-blown Tour de France sprint finish, he's not finishing third on the day. Tomorrow's stage of the Criterium du Dauphiné is when we start to at least have some more fun. The profile there, 228 kilometers, like I mentioned before. It's got 2, 4, 6, 8 categorized climbs, some 2s, some 4s, some 3s, 2 of each, 3 2s, 3 4s, and 2 3s. So it's got some good climbing in it, at least where the guys, especially with 228 kilometers of racing. So I expect with a category 2 coming about 7K to the finish and then downhill, this could be an Alaphilippe type of day if he's in the mix there. This would be a Nibali type of thing, right? Going over the top, hitting the gas and creating some distance. Mohoric, I don't know if he's even in this race. That would be one because he's well known for his daring descents. And so that will be an interesting one for tomorrow. And then we have Saturday, Sunday with the big mountain stages coming up. Okay, some news of the world of cycling. So I just wanted to mention here, Juan Jose Cobo. He was the winner of the 2011 Vuelta a España over Chris Froome and Bradley Wiggins. That was the first time you saw Chris Froome come to the fore in a Grand Tour, riding with Sky. There was, up until that point, he had been negotiating actually with, at the time, Slipstream Sports, Jonathan Vaughters, to come over to that team. And it looked like that was going to happen. But, and Chris Froome he and Bradley have had some words about this tour this year, actually. Chris Froome had said, look, it's hard to trust people. Sometimes you don't know what to do. Like he's talking about he and Thomas about going into the race. And do you trust that this person is going to be able to pull off the win? And if you're not sure, then you've got to make sure you're up there. You don't want to lose time. And he's like, look, I didn't win the 2011 Vuelta because I was working for Brad and I was doing all this stuff for him. And then he falters. And then when he falters, I've got to step up. And by then it's too late. So there were fighting words because then Brad's kind of like saying BS on that. And the point is on that was a race Chris Froome came to the fore on, and then we've seen him ever since. But the interesting part of that race is you may not know, Juan Jose Cobo actually won the race that year. Well, he's just been declared by the UCI that he's been found guilty of the UCI biological passport violation. So Chris Froome now stands to be declared the winner of the 2011 Vuelta a España. Just when you thought Chris Froome was going to go through 2019 without winning a Grand Tour, he has one handed here. And did you know that you can still be in competition for a Grand Tour 8 years after the fact? This race is not over. It's interesting. I also looked up something this morning, and Cobo had there was a news article on Cycling News that Cobo, all the testing basically from the top podium that year had come back clean, that there was no improprieties. So, they had all the results. Well, this is a biological passport. So I didn't know that they were still looking things over Anyway, the UCI announced on Thursday that its anti-doping tribunal found Kobo guilty of an anti-doping rule violation, that's use of a prohibited substance, based on abnormalities from 2009 and 2011 detected in his biological passport, and imposed a 3-year period of ineligibility on the rider. He may appeal this. I don't know what he's got going on. I haven't heard anything of him since 2011 Vuelta. Maybe I'll look that up tonight and give you a report tomorrow as to what his results have been. But being awarded a 7th Grand Tour victory will be a little consolation for Froome, obviously because he just wrecked out. Really interesting to note that Froome ended the race 13 seconds down on Kobo in the final classification with Brad Wiggins at 139. Back then, Bauke Mollema, who was with Rabobank, was 4th, so he might get his podium. Is this how you want to win your podium, your race? No, because you missed out on all the glory of it at the time. It's the whole thing with Lance Armstrong, people depriving others of the race. Should I even read to you the text that Chris or Curt sent to me about this? Basically implying that Froome, we'll skip that one altogether. Okay. I mentioned yesterday the OVO Energy Women's Tour is happening right now. Not following that too closely. There's a lot going on right now. But Marianne Vos, she crashed out of the race. There was a video in the front of the race. She's second wheel behind her teammate. They hit just a little pothole. Her hands are in her drops. Looks everything's fine, but it's just enough for her hand to slip off the bar. And as she does so, her chest goes into her stem. She can't get control of it. It's a big wreck. It takes out a bunch of people from the front. They were going high speed. They were just getting ready for an intermediate sprint. She's ended up crashing out. Hand slipped off the bar, like I said, and she took out a bunch of people on herself. But she's ended up crashing out of the women's tour. Hope she's okay. Another drug news, Yarlinson Pantano, he had formerly been with Trek, I think, a few years ago, Colombian, who retires amid EPO positive. He claims his innocence, as of course, and hey, once again, due process, so we're looking for that. His team, Manzana Posteban, they were also suspended. Now, they've just announced that they are folding the team anyway, but the UCI said, even so, if you come back, you have a 45-day suspension, just in case. So there were 2 quick positive tests on that team in the last 12 months. I don't know if that's a UCI standard, but anyway, Yarlinson, he's done. He's saying he's innocent. That's what happens. And once again, due process. Tulsa Tough just took place on the continental level. Sam Bassetti won the last day up with the Crybaby Hill. Very impressive. Gets in the break and then wins. Then there's another guy that went up the road. He bridges up to that right at the end and wins in the sprint. It was really well done. Smart head on him. I think he got second the other 2 days to Justin Williams. Justin Williams was not in the mix on the final day, so I think Sam gets the omnium by that due to his overall. Interesting part, you don't really see anything written up about Sam. There's a bunch of stuff about Justin Williams because Justin is pretty dynamic. Sam is local. He is a coach with Data Driven Athlete, who is a team that I ride for. So maybe we're going to reach out and see if we could get him to come in and have a conversation, maybe give him a little bit more publicity than he has been getting at all. So maybe you want to reach out to Vela News or some of these other sources and say, hey, what about Sam Bassetti? Okay, he's been tearing it up. Totally. Side note, I just saw this. Kellen Winslow has been convicted of rape. 5 different charges, I believe. How is this cycling related? Well, a few years ago, Kellen Winslow, do you know him? His dad was a professional wide receiver with the San Diego Chargers. Kellen himself then was a University of Miami wide receiver. And he got really into cycling. And when he got into cycling, he basically was saying, hey, I could be a pro at this. And he was going to, I think that was going to be his big deal. Kellen Winslow Jr., just to make sure, because his dad is the senior. So he faces up to life in prison. Some of these stories were bizarre. Anyway, he said he was going to be a pro. He got into cycling. I think he made it up to a Cat 3. Not quite as high as the Mark Paul Gosselaar celebrity of fame from TV show Saved by the Bell. I think he made it to a Cat 2. Anyway, Kellen was going to be a pro. He thought he could do that. He was out training a lot. Evidently, they used a lot of his Strava data to help pinpoint these areas. It was some were like indecent exposure to and rape of like a homeless lady. I mean, I don't think he cared if, due process once again, but I don't think he cared about who his victims were as far as he didn't have a type. You just had to be there and available. Pretty disgusting, but up to life in prison. And hey, weird concept. Viewer listener mailbag. Once again, crickets. All right. Last thing, things that make you go, before we sign off for the day, is there was a recent story. Riders file abuse claims against HealthMate Cycle Live manager Patrick Van Gassen. He refused the claims, but now there's been 3 riders of abuse and inappropriate behavior. It's an interesting story. We've seen this a little bit, and there was a call by Kaylee Fretz, editor-in-large of the Cycling Tips, where he was really going to say, hey, UCI, why aren't you taking care of this? I've mentioned the word a few times, due process to me is always a big deal. I'm a family law attorney. I handle a lot of cases of DVROs, domestic violence restraining orders, and I handle on both sides, because it's client against client or party against party. The state's not involved in those. So I defend them. I help prosecute those. People lie a lot. And I'm not saying these women lie. I'm just saying the stories are amazing, how they come out from one side. And once you start to try to pit that person up against court, how you can make them look just by simple evidence and not misstating the facts, just stating the facts and how you want to weave that. So you do require some. One of the things here was this. Look, this is a horrible situation. This girl, she's living at the team manager's house because he's not paying her anything. So right there, we've got some other. I think you can alleviate some of these problems. One, I don't care if it's boys or girls, but they probably shouldn't be living with the manager. You go home and live with your boss. I mean, you've got to just have some separation. And maybe, I don't know if the UCI steps in with some, I'm not a big rules guy, but maybe they need to step in with some regulations, or at least maybe the teams need to step in for this. This girl's at the house. She says that the manager keeps making sexually advancing comments to her. His thing is like, no, what I'm saying to her is, you're dressing too revealing. Maybe you should change your clothes. I don't know who's right and wrong in those. Those are some weird issues. Some of the comments, like that behavior is over the line, and you've got to have a professional relationship. Obviously, living with someone, it's going to start bleeding into that a little bit. Some of the other things were just abusive comments, and maybe you see this more on the female side than the male side of, talking about their weight. Maybe they, look, guys, sometimes we're used to playing, football and some of these other sports, and the coaches can be pretty hefty, not hefty, pretty ornery and, not demeaning, but straightforward. And maybe the female just doesn't like that. And you've got to, as someone who's coached kids volleyball, high school, each kid is different. And as a good coach, you've got to, I'm not saying I'm a good coach, but part of the mentality is to try to pick those people, and you got to relate to each one differently. Some kids, you can tell you've got to use that stick, and they want to be pushed, and they want not the abuse, but they want that hard-nosed edge to them. Other kids, you've got to massage them, not literally, but you've got to, use your words a little bit differently and to bring them along more in a positive way. And maybe not all coaches, this guy probably old school. He's not that. Anyway, they'll have to get to the bottom of this. This is like few female teams have had this problem. I think a lot of it really stems from, let's try to figure out the cause of some of this. And I think some of it has to do with the pay problems in female sports. Is they're not getting salaries, so they end up too much enmeshment with the coach or the directors, living arrangements, and there's a lot of different kind of pressures. So this, though, the result, the solution is really about bringing sponsorship money into the female sport, so they can have a lively, prosperous, successful life and a career and get paid for it. You're not going to end up taking that money from the men's side unless the men have a joint team, which you've seen some of those that works. But it's got to be something that's economically sustainable. And look, the women's sport is a good one. So we got to kind of push that when we can. things that make you we just did. Winners and losers. Okay. How do you not go with the winners with Wout Van Aert? He won the stage. He's near the front. And look, he's kind of the new guy coming out. So, and I want to mention one thing here. Curt had mentioned yesterday, I had talked about the Wout's cross bleeding over into his time trialing. Actually, he made a mention of it himself, saying that he's been working on his time trialing for a few weeks. This is amazing. A few weeks, and also that cross really does play a part, that you go super hard for 30 minutes, and with that, it's similar to the time trial. You just go all out. So the winner also is Curt Mills for his comments and getting them justified and redemption from Wout Van Aert himself of saying, Curt, you are correct. Yes, cross does help make me a better time trialer. So you wonder how many people will now be doing cross in the off season to help themselves. Losers on the day, Chris Froome. Really? I don't know. He just won. He won big time by winning the Vuelta. I guess the loser on the day would be Juan Jose Cobo. And for his failed attempt at winning the 2011 Vuelta, he thought he was probably in the clear. Sorry to hear it. He's not. Okay. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Between Two Wheels podcast. Once again, share the show. Make some comments. Find it wherever you can. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast.fm, Podbeam. Find us on our YouTube channel. Once again, we're putting up some displays so you can see the profiles we put up. Some of the mentioning the results. We'll post those as well in some overlays. So Between Two Wheels podcast channel. I mentioned before that there is a confusion out there with another Between Two Wheels podcast. It is all about motorcycles, Harleys. I had a person the other day, I saw, hey, I got another subscription to our platform, and their picture is a Harley Davidson. So I think we gained a few, and then we keep going down. So maybe you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Let's build that up. We're going to plan some live interaction as well. Facebook page as well. Once again, thank you for listening. We appreciate everyone joining in, being part of the show. Stay tuned next week, probably tomorrow. Stay tuned for tomorrow for stage 6 of the Dauphine, and more news as we follow Chris Froome in his recovery. Thank you, everybody.